I'm Helen Norbury, and this is Becoming Unapologetically Me, the show all about authentic self-expression with expert guests from the fields of health, leadership, and mindset. This show is here to show you that you don't need to conform to the expectations that friends, family, and society have of you, and actually what we can unearth when we find the courage to become the unapologetic version of who we are. Grab a cup of coffee and get your notepad out for this week's episode. Hello, and welcome back to Becoming Unapologetically Me. Today, I'm so excited to be talking to Lisa Jacovsky. Lisa is a psychology professor and an author of a number of books now, which I'm sure we'll talk about more as our time together progresses. So, Lisa, massive welcome. And I thought I would start by jumping right in there and asking you, how do you see the way that we're educated, especially as young girls? How does that shape the beliefs that we carry into adulthood?
Oh, it totally shapes our beliefs because we are taught to think a certain way, especially in certain cultures, certain states. Because I'm in the US, we've got the Republicans, the Democrats. So depending on where you're based, you're going to be taught different things as well. So you've got states that are taught women are the mom and they're the housewives and they don't work. And then you've got the states that are more democratic, more blue, that are like women can do it all. So depending on where you are in the US, depends on what kind of education and information you're getting. And then you've also got culture that plays a role because even though you're going to school, you're getting an education at home from culture too. And there's certain things where certain cultures say, oh, the parents live with the son and then the mom takes care of them. So depending on where you are, it really shapes your belief system. And then it's up to you when you become older to decide, do you subscribe to that? Or do you want to break free from that and make your own way? And I love the title of this podcast, by the way, because it's very much like the path I've taken. I do things very much unapologetically, so I've been very lucky that where I live and the family I've had, they've encouraged me to not care about anything when it comes to what school says or what the surrounding culture says, to do my own thing and break free from that. We're going through this whole fight right now with politics too, because that shapes education as well. And we're seeing between that, there's also influencers that are shaping the way people are thinking. And the way we think of education today is so different than like the traditional education. Because we can say the classroom all we want, but there's so much more going on outside of the classroom that's shaping us too.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I guess in my parents' generation, they tended to stay where they were born and brought up. And so there wasn't much movement of people. So I guess there was not so much impact of having these big discrepancies of the messaging that you're getting as you grow up. However, as the world becomes a smaller place and it's so much easier to move from state to state, country to country, even continent to continent, that starts to become much more impactful, doesn't it? And that unlearning can be quite an involved process, can't it, to shed those layers?
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I tell my students, go travel as much as possible. But if you're traveling, make sure you're looking at the culture and being respectful when you go, because that can be a learning process too. If you're going to another country that feels a certain way about women, they're going to expect you, even though it's a foreigner, to act that way. So you have to be very on top of things too. And if you come from a state where you're told that you have to be a certain way and you go to a state where it's completely different and you're free and open, it can be kind of like a culture shock. And some people like it and some people don't.
So I've seen you talk about how terms like abnormal, negative, punishment, how those sorts of terms can be really misunderstood. How do you think that those words impact the way that we see ourselves?
Oh, they have a huge impact on us. This is something that I had difficulty with when I was still in the field too. Some people see the word negative itself having a bad connotation. Same thing with punishment. But in reality, what we're talking about with punishment is not like spanking or the traditional punishment where you take something or rip something away from them. Because when we're talking about punishment and negative in terms of psychology, we're talking about removing something. So we're not actually doing anything physical. We're not hitting, not even hitting the hand. We're not spanking. All we're literally doing is removing a token or removing video games if they'd rather do that than homework. And then you always follow it with something positive. So we're never doing anything negative or punishment without something positive as well. And then you hear the word abnormal, which I'm mostly okay with. I kind of feel like we need a better word for it because I don't like the word normal either. But the word abnormal tends to make people think of something negative, something that, isn't accepted. And that's not true. I teach abnormal psychology at 2 different schools, and what we're teaching is mental health disorders. That's what we're talking about. So why are they called abnormal? Why is mental health seen as something different with a negative connotation? We have to change that. And that's part of why I love teaching these classes so much, because this younger generation needs to be taught this so that when they get older, 5, 10 years into their fields, they have this more positive mindset and we can change the way things are going. Because one person can make a change. And if we have the ripple effect, we can see what this world so badly needs. Our words have power. And we're using words that for the longest time had this really rough connotation. And it's still stuck that way. And that's a big issue. I'm very much into token boards, reinforcement systems, but if, they engage in a behavior and they don't earn their reinforcement, they could be like, whatever, who cares, that I'm not earning it. But if you take that token away, they're like, oh, wait a minute. So that's what negative reinforcement is. That's what punishment is. It's just that removal of something. So we need to get this world to realize that our words have power and that we need to either change that connotation around it or change the word itself.
So obviously we've spoken about this podcast being called Becoming Unapologetically Me. It's also been part of my journey in going through that and finding what that version of myself is. But what role do you think that schools play in how women specifically learn to self-censor and shrink themselves down to fit in with expectations?
Oh, I think it's the way the teachers are trained, and I think it's also the setup. We have home ec. I grew up watching Saved by the Bell. I love the show. I really do. But when you think about older shows like that, one of the things that comes to mind is only the girls took home ec. Only the girls took the classes where they had the baby. I didn't have guys in those classes. I took the cooking class. I had guys in those classes, but I didn't have anyone that was male in the baby class that we had to take. And I think the way they structure school is they use that old school mentality that women are supposed to be a specific way. That's what we're learning. And if you look at history too, they start off with the history where it talks about women are housewives, Victorian era. That plays a big part in our history too. And we're taught in schools, Victorian era, big dresses, women are meek and mild. And we learn about women like Harriet Tubman and like Rosa Parks, but it's not focused on enough. Those are the women that pushed against the grain, that did not care. But we focus on the things when we're being taught in school and setting up our school system with classes that are focused on women being a specific way. And we have to break out of that mold. For all the things that are wrong with our education system, we still need the National Department of Education. But we still really do have to do an overhaul of our education system, period, and how we're training our teachers. I saw that firsthand when I worked in Irvington observing teachers. God bless them. But at the same time, oh my goodness, now I completely understand it. And it's really that draconian view of the way women are supposed to be. And that's not okay. But our world, at least the US, is very divided on this right now. And thank God we're seeing such an incredibly huge pushback because the women are under attack right now, hugely under attack. And it's not just immigrants that are being attacked, it's us too. And it's getting pushed under the rug because of the immigration stuff. But at the same time, it does affect immigrants as well that are being attacked because of some of them that are women. We have to push back and we have to fight back and show them that God created women for men for a reason. God created women so that we can carry the children. We are the emotional ones. Man could not keep going if it wasn't for us. Plain and simple. We need that respect. And they need to change things to focus on those things that God created us for, not just what men think we are only here for.
How do we start to unlearn those limiting labels and the language that we're internalizing from such a young and impressionable age?
It definitely starts at the top. I brought up the whole politics thing right now. We need to start getting people in power who actually believe in balance, who actually believe that women are not just here for one thing, that women are equal to men, if not superior to men, to be honest. We do a lot more than they do. We were created as a species to do a lot more than they do. It starts at the top, and then it trickles down into the changes that you make in the education system, in the textbooks. It also comes down to a lot of mental health tactics. What's going on right now is all because of mental health and all because of being stuck in the past. We need to realize we have to evolve and move forward. How do we do that? By making changes. How do we make changes? By actually going forward and realizing, hey, we've got mental health in this country and focusing on that. We're focusing on things right now that a man is pushing on us. And I'm not saying that we should have a female in power if that would do anything different, but at the same time, why is a man saying what a woman can and cannot do? We have to change that mentality. And in order to do that, we have to work on our mental health. And that is one thing that has always gone by the wayside in this country is mental health. And if we actually focus on working on the mental health issues, we would have less bullying, less school shootings. We wouldn't have this issue going on right now in politics. And how it comes down to mental health and first admitting that's what we need to focus on, and then two, starting to focus on it. There's so many incredible techniques out there: mindfulness, acceptance and commitment therapy, cognitive behavior therapy. They are so good at helping with mental health. But the first thing is always admitting there's a problem, because nobody wants to admit there's a problem. Look at what everything's going on right now. It's insane what's going on. And it's turning in a very serious way, very fast. That's really scary. But it's all due to mental health.
Yeah, I definitely feel with the mental health conversation that there's almost a fear of looking into the Pandora's box almost. If I open this up, I might not be able to get the lid back on, and it might just be so big and enormous. But at some point, we need to start normalizing conversations around mental health in schools, in workplaces, wherever that may be.
And so what if it is big and enormous? That's the thing. We have to remove the fear of looking at it. We have to remove the stigma, because so what if it's big and enormous? That's where you start. But it's going to be, because look where the US is right now and everything that's going on. It's absolutely insane. And if we don't start addressing these things now, it's going to get worse. And who knows where this country is going to be in 3.5 years, if it's even fixable by then. So, even if it's big and enormous, you whittle it down little by little. That's the best thing you can do. You can't come in and attack something and be super aggressive when it comes to mental health. You have to do it little by little. And that's what people are not understanding right now either.
For sure. And I think one of my favorite sayings is, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. And it's the same with addressing mental health, isn't it? You're not going to fix all of it straight away, but start somewhere. And it can only then get better, can't it? I know you've talked a lot about the need for safe spaces so that we can have these hard conversations. So what does a truly emotionally safe space look like to you?
To me, it's being able to call or text somebody and just vent it all out, being able to truly be myself, talk about things, curse, be completely honest, whatever I need to do to be able to get it out and be able to just let that weight off of me. I have people in my life that allow me to do that, which helps tremendously. And then I've got other ways that I de-stress too. But having somebody say, I understand, you don't realize how powerful that can be. That one little word until it happens. I had one person say something like, oh, it happens. I hung up on him. And then I text and called the other person. They're like, oh my God, I understand. I immediately calmed down. It's having somebody in my life that is empathetic, compassionate, and actually understands where I'm coming from and allows me to be me. That is my safe space. And the best thing for me mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. I think we all only need to be seen, heard, and understood, don't we? And having those people in our lives that can offer us that, and equally where we can offer it to them as well, is such an important part of being human, isn't it?
I agree 100%. And if you don't have something like that, at least a narcissism, anxiety, depression, and anger. And that's where we're getting things like school shootings, where we're getting things that are coming up that are super serious that could have been absolutely avoided, whether it's national news or something private in the family like that. It comes down to that communication piece.
So, how do you personally model that emotional openness through your own teaching and how you work with students?
I give my students a lot of examples. So I put a lot of my career, my background into my job. I'm very honest with my students. I told them on Thursday, I was like, you can ask me anything you want. Just let's do it on the 1 hour break at the end. Because they always have a lot of questions about my career, college, my degrees. So while I'm teaching, I'll be talking about something in the discussion, or we'll be doing the applied assignment. And I'll immediately think of an example from my career. So that's one of the best things that I do to teach them. And I tell them too, it's like, no is not a final no. A 0 is not a final grade. Keep going, keep pushing. So a lot of the lessons I've learned, I try to tell them so they don't make the same mistakes.
Amazing. Yeah. Like a proxy mom as well.
Exactly. 'Cause I'm trying to encourage them to not give up, not stay stuck, keep moving forward. And I remember being in their shoes in Montclair State and just being like in class and like, ugh, am I done yet? So I know how they feel. I got into my field late and now here I am switching careers again. I have 2 careers, which I never expected. Now I'm switching from ABA to school psych. Life takes you in ways you don't expect. And the best thing I can do personally for myself is to give back to the world. And one way I can do that is by with my students and helping them see their potential and pushing them to want to keep going forward.
So, what do you see happening when we finally get to that place where we can give ourselves permission to speak the truth about what we're feeling?
Oh, I think we're going to see a lot of things happen. I think it's going to be tough and a hard road when that does happen, but I think we're going to see a lot of things come to light that we didn't know about politically. I think families are going to see a lot of things come out that their children, their dads, aunts, uncles kept inside for a really long time. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of crying tears of anger, crying tears of happiness. And it's going to lead to breakthroughs and to things that less bullying, less, anxiety, depression. It's going to affect mental health. But we need to get to that point where we can actually do that. And once we do that, start the process of healing and moving forward in positivity. Because when people come out and say things that are honest, the reaction leads to consequences. Does the person clam up? Do they keep going? And if they're clamming up, there's going to be anxiety, depression, suicidal ideations. Once we get to that point where we can be open, we have to learn how to accept it and move forward in peace and positivity. And that's how we're going to get to the point where we don't have the bullying, we don't have school shootings, we don't have suicide, we don't have what's going on in politics right now in the USA too. So it's a process and there's steps to it. But if we can get to that point, that'll be probably one of the biggest steps that we have to take.
And as parents who are still healing ourselves, how do we best support our children emotionally when we're not the finished article by any stretch of the imagination? We're doing our best, but how do we find that balance to support our children and heal ourselves at the same time?
2 things. 1, be open to your child. And 2, do things that make you happy. Don't make your life 100% about your children. And I know that's what happens. But set aside some time for yourself to do things that make you happy. Because if you're not happy and healthy, your children are going to feel that and they're going to know that. And it's going to seep into everything you do in your life. They say a 1 hour workout a day is 5% of your day. And I know it can be hard to get that in. Working full time, being a full time parent as well, multiple kids, maybe you have other things going on in your life. But if you work out even once in the week, if that's what makes you happy, if reading makes you happy, if writing makes you happy, if you do it even once or twice a week and are able to make that time, it's going to make a huge difference. Be open with your children, be open to anything. Don't yell first. Listen to your kids, then digest and decide how to react. So that way, because if you yell first, they're going to go inside of themselves and not want to communicate with you. And they're going to expect that. And it's going to create that within them. So be open to your kids, yell later, listen first, and do everything you can to do something once or twice a week that is for you, that is a hobby and makes you happy, because that's going to be something that's healthy emotionally and mentally. And you have to be that way in order to create emotionally and mentally healthy children and also create that relationship with them as well. Because if you're not emotionally, mentally healthy, you're not going to have that relationship with your kids either.
It's such great role modeling as well. And I know there was a time that I felt really guilty about that. Like, oh, I'm not there for the kids and I'm going off and it's selfish to do these things for myself. But then I realized that I came back totally refreshed, like twice as good of a mom as I was before. And I'm like, actually, this is a really good investment for all of us, for me to spend that time doing something that just helps me to come back to myself a little bit rather than being one dimensionally with the children all the time. Yeah, it can be difficult to find the time, but it's really important to create the time, isn't it?
And that's one thing that I used to tell my parents all the time too, is don't put so much pressure on yourself. It doesn't have to be a daily thing. You don't have to be super consistent. Everyone's human. So like you said, if you just take it once in a while, that helps too. If it's once, twice a week, or maybe taking a weekend away for yourself once a month, that helps. Those little things do build up over time.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that you've worked in applied behavior analysis. So what lessons can women draw from that field to help shift the way that they understand their own behavior and emotions?
Think about how you interact with your clients and how you interact with your kids. Because so many people in ABA are like, I act completely different with my kids than I do with my clients. But think about how the different techniques that you use with your clients, you can use them with your kids and try to be a little more flexible, a little more creative. Take that part of ABA into being a mom and working with your kids and just have some fun with it, because ABA can be really fun. It can be really awesome. But so many people go home and they put their mom hat on and they just, everything goes out the door. And if you take that part of the field that is actually really fun and creative, where we get to like make token boards and make different activities or play board games with our clients, just they have to learn turn taking. Those little things can be a big difference when you get home as well. Think about your behaviors as a behaviorist when you're working with your clients, and how can you shape those and use those in working with your kids too?
In what ways can redefining common terms like normal or success, how can that help women to really reclaim their power?
I think we compare ourselves way, way too much. And I think that, especially redefining the word success and realizing that everybody's individual. Your siblings, your twins, you may have the same blood, but you're still an individual person with your own differences. And I think when it comes to redefining those words, we have to remember that what's normal for me might not be normal for you. Redefining normal and success, we have to stop comparing and realize that we're all individuals, we're all different, and we're all beautiful. So what looks like success to me is going to be different to somebody else. What looks like success to one of my author friends might be not what's successful to me. It doesn't make me feel like I'm successful. When somebody might engage in a certain behavior that to them is normal, but to me, I'm like, oh, that's a little strange. But that's just because I don't do that. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. So I think we have to take these words more with a grain of salt from now on and stop comparing ourselves. Everybody's different. Everybody's beautiful, has their own strengths, their own weaknesses. And as a psychologist and a professor, what does success look like to me? What does being normal look like to me? Some people get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go work out, then go to work. Me, absolutely not. There's no way. So they can do that. That's totally fine. And what success look like? For me, it's reaching one student every semester. Like that makes me happy. Some people are, I had a tough semester last fall with my in-person classes, and some people would look at that as a failure. But you know what? I had a couple students that emailed me afterwards and they were like, wow, thank you so much for helping me. And even though it was a really tough semester that I could probably say wasn't very successful, just getting those emails, it meant a lot. And that's what success looks like to me, is just touching one person. So when I tell people exactly what happened that semester and how tough it was, or even my students probably thought it wasn't successful. Because I know I had a conversation with a student after, there's 30 people in here. I think I had maybe 10 or 12 actually attend class. So to him, that might have looked like a really like bad semester that wasn't successful. But to me, I touched one or two students, so it was successful. So we have to think about what does it mean to us and stop that comparison. Because once we start the comparisons, that's when it mentally messes with us and we get depression and anxiety. So for me, I root other women on. You know, I'm like, hey, you got bestseller status? Awesome. I'm excited to get to that point. Hey, go for it. That's amazing.
Nothing stronger than a group of women who all lift each other up is like the best place to be and to be a part of. Is, yeah, one of my favorite things about being a woman.
I agree. Like, I would never put another woman, another human being down in that way because everybody's career is going to look different. One of my friends has been in the field. I think she got in the field at the same time that I got in the field. I was in my late 20s when I got in the field, and my career has been completely up and down. Her career has been completely steady, you know, and she's been fine. She's had her job 9 to 5. And, you know, I have never once been jealous of that. The only thing I felt is like, oh, I want my career to start. But that's about it. I've never been jealous of the fact that she's had a steady, straight career because I think that's amazing. Like, good for her. She's worked really hard. She deserves it. And I've come to terms with the fact my career is never going to be steady like that. But at the same time, I like it that way. I love the way my career is. And to me, that's totally fine. If somebody doesn't understand it, that's their problem. If they don't see me as successful, then I wish them the best.
It doesn't really matter. It's for you, isn't it? So what's one belief that you've had to let go of to become more aligned with your truth and your values?
So one belief definitely is that my career is, I was just talking about, my career is never going to be a straight 9 to 5. It's always going to be a zigzag. And I'm never going to have one job, one company. I'm always going to work for multiple. Because you grow up and you think, oh, you get your undergrad degree and you go right into the field and you've got 9 to 5, 8 to 3, 8 to 4, whatever it is, that's your job. I thought my first job in the field was it. I was done. I was going to pass the BCBA. Never happened. And I'm so thankful that it did not happen. When for years I resented the exam and I'm not the kind of person that fails. So to take an exam and fail it was really hard. And it took me a long time up until the past probably 3 years to be like, hey, I have an amazing career. I have always had an amazing career. It just looks different. So that is something I've had to come to terms with and let go of. And I'm so much happier. I have all these amazing opportunities this year. I'm working on more opportunities for next year. And I finished my doctorate in 2 years. And I know exactly what my goals are for when I'm done. I know where I want to go. I know where I want to be. And I know that I'm never going to have that straight kind of career. I'm going to work for multiple companies. I'm going to have my own business. And I'm always going to have 2 careers. And I am 150% fine with that. I love it. It makes me so happy. And having all the trials and tribulations that I've had have really shaped who I am and pushed me to be who I am. So when they say everything happens for a reason, it's true. You may not know it till later, which is exactly what happened with me.
I totally get that because I always say that I have a portfolio career because I'm always working with lots of different people, fingers in different pies. But honestly, when I could let go of what should, my career should look like you say, that sort of 9 till 5, working with one company from 25 until you retire. When I can let go of that and go, actually, what fills me up the most is doing all these different things and wearing all these different hats. That's amazing to me. Totally get it. So the big question, How are you using your books that you've written to really bring together everything that we've spoken about and to encapsulate all your most important messages?
Oh my gosh, in so many different ways. So, my books are very much based on my career. My first series, Let's Talk and Happy Thoughts, there's all different things from ABA in those. And it's loosely based off of one little one I worked with that was amazing. And then you've also got my cat brothers, Spooky, Perfect, my special needs cat series, my Bones and Friends. I work with the amazing Brainstorm Productions on those, and they employ individuals with autism. So my career is so heavily involved in my books. It's incredible. And this year has really seen the intersection of psychology and my books. I wrote a chapter about medical encounters, resources, and tips and ideas for families and individuals with autism to be able to engage in these encounters and emergencies in a better way. And that book is so incredible. It's a compilation book of all different authors. And I'm giving trainings this year based on that chapter, two of them, with one with the NJPA in December, one with the American Psych Association in August at their conference. I made a poster about it. So I'm really excited. I'm also doing more with She Rises Studios, which is an incredible organization that empowers women. They have allowed me to write articles for their magazines that are coming out next month, two of them. And through that, I get to show a different way to my writing, but also talk more about my career. So one of my articles is about how being a professor has influenced my books. That's coming out in Success Savvy. And then you got Incubator, where I'm talking about being an author and my career, how I've gotten here. So there's an intersection of psychology and my background, and now as a professor influencing it as well. There's two summits that She Rises is having, one in August, one in November. The August one is a pre-taped episode one, and I really got to talk about examples from my career about students that have influenced me and pushed me to be a better person, and interactions with children with autism at school readings that have influenced me, because there's been really amazing things that have happened that I didn't expect to happen. So this intersection of psychology and my writing, which is so beautiful and incredible. And I'm so excited to keep doing more with She Rises and especially write articles for them. I have a whole bunch of topics written out. I just got another magazine article for their Hannah magazine, their anniversary in August. So I'm excited about that. I also got a cover with our Incubator magazine coming in. I'm really excited about that. I didn't expect that.
It's such important messages. My daughter has an autism and ADHD diagnosis, and sometimes she can give me an insight into what it's like to be inside of her brain. And it blows my mind every single time that sort of little chink into her brain comes, and how she navigates life on a day-to-day basis. She's 13. She's pretty good at helping me to understand what it's like to be her so that I can advocate for her. But it just blows my mind every time. And she's, surely you understand. And I'm like, my brain doesn't work like that, or it doesn't compute in the same way as yours. And so it's fascinating to understand a little bit, because I'm sure I only get the tip of the iceberg, but also to understand how important it is for more people to understand that. I'm very privileged in that I have a daughter with that diagnosis and that she can give me those insights, but not everyone's so fortunate. And so being able to provide more information and knowledge to the world, I think is such an important thing.
Thank you. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And it's so funny because one of the topics I want to talk about for a future article is how working with Brainstorm has really shaped, me as a person and as an author with my books. And I also want to talk about how in that article too, how working in this field and working alongside individuals with autism, both kids and adults, has really shaped and changed me too. So that's an article that I want to put out in when She Rises magazine's coming too, because there's so much we can learn and there's so much beauty in being different and having these different things. And it's really about encouraging people to be open to that.
if every woman who's listening today could rewrite one internal rule that she's been living by, what would you invite her to change first?
Thinking freely. Thinking freely and not giving a you know what about what anyone thinks. I've always been that type of person that I've never gone by trends. I've always done what made me happy. I've dressed the way that makes me happy. And I think my career pretty much reflects that really well, to be honest. So I think that think for yourself, think freely, and who cares what anyone says or thinks or tells you to do? If you want to do something and someone says no, find a way. Literally, like one of my things that I always say is there's always a way. No is definitely not a final answer. And I always believe there's a way to figure something out. And if someone tells me I can't do something, I'm going to go prove them wrong. So think freely and do whatever makes you happy, no matter what anybody else says to you.
Well, what a great place to wrap up this interview, because that's such an important message in becoming unapologetically you, isn't it? So thank you so much for this conversation. I knew I was going to enjoy it. And it was so insightful. And I love the work that you're doing through your books, through your teaching. And yeah, it's very special and very needed. So thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming Unapologetically Me. Make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts so you never miss an episode.